Thanks for tuning in. Please pardon the quality. I didn't have the money to produce a commercial video. I want to pass on to you what I discovered about natural putting. This is my contribution, my free gift, so to speak, to you and to golf. The following could be the most important 15 minutes you ever spent learning our game. Some of these features have been around for many years. Golfers believed there had to be a way to deal with their pushes, pulls, and the dreaded yips, so they experimented. When they found an approach that seemed to work, they usually stopped looking for more. I didn't. In natural putting, you may recognize many of these features, like the side saddle style from Sam Snead, or the one-handed mechanics by Mike Hubert, or Susan Peterson putting with her eyes closed. All of these solutions were on the right path to better putting. They just didn't go far enough. Often, they were not even the best execution of these discoveries, because they didn't take advantage of all that the brain and the body could do, naturally. And before I get into it, a word of advice. Don't put off learning to putt naturally. Don't wait until you have to. I did. I had a stroke, not a terrible one, but serious enough. Among other complications, I lost some of my sight. My first concern, naturally, was my vision, but I shouldn't have worried. My partial sight led me to a major improvement in my golf game. I call it natural putting. I discovered that my brain had been functioning with a handicap, me, because like most golfers, I wasn't paying any attention to it. For example, it had been telling me not to have that extra piece of cake, and as you can see, I still had my cake, lots of it. I concluded that prior to my stroke, I had been sabotaging my body and my brain. Then I wondered if there were mechanical advantages and disadvantages that would help or hinder my golf game. I closely examined my biophysics and asked myself if there were any physical attributes that I wasn't using, or, worse still, was improperly using. Was I underestimating what my brain and body could accomplish, if only I would let them? I discovered a lot. For example, I learned that our brains are very efficient and fast. And most importantly, I learned that putting didn't have to be so darn complicated. We have all marveled at the player who takes a long time lining up his putt. Once he has isolated his target, he quickly takes up his stance and hits his ball, all in less than 5 seconds. The magic ingredient? He had learned to trust his brain. Using a more scientific description, he was putting unconsciously. Before you get the wrong idea, unconscious can be a great thing. For example, if your nose is itchy, you don't even have to think about locating your nose, and you don't have to think about which finger you'll use, and you certainly don't have to think about the mechanics you use to get rid of the itch. You just do it. You do it unconsciously. You scratch your nose. Putting can be that simple. Golfers need to trust their brain to collect the necessary information. Add it to what it already knows, and send that information to the parts of the body involved in making the putt. If you find yourself constantly checking and rechecking the distance to the cup, adjusting your stance, checking your shoulders, your grip, and changing the position of your feet, you could be erasing everything your brain already knows about this putt and replacing it with new information, or even worse, with your fear of missing. With natural putting, you'll learn to trust your brain, and not be so darn scared of doing it wrong. You can putt. Just do it. Unfortunately, if you have trained your brain to disregard the information it has already collected, and waits for you to provide it with new information, it eventually won't bother to pay attention, and then you're in real trouble, because your brain will give up. Okay, you putts, see if you can make a putt now. Convoluted mechanics also short-circuit your brain when you try to putt. Since it already knows how to putt naturally, your brain's messages to your muscles can go astray when you try to do something in a way you weren't meant to do it. How many pros do you know who keep changing their grip, for example? What they are really doing is trying to intercept those messages their brain is trying to send to a proper grip, not the one currently in use. If you disregard it long enough, eventually your brain could get even by giving you a bad case of the dreaded yips. So I will start with a challenging question. If you do not pay attention to the answer, your putting may never get better than it is right now. Your putting may even get worse. So here is your question. What is a demanding, coordinated, two-handed physical activity that requires exactly the right touch and the exact power simultaneously from both hands? Think about it for a second. Name a demanding, coordinated, two-handed physical activity that requires exactly the right touch and the exact power simultaneously from both hands. Have you thought of one? Here is a hint. There's only one. And more than 60 million people do it more than 8 billion times a year. Give up? The answer is putting a golf ball. That's right. Most golfers have been using both hands when one hand would do better. They have been doing it that way for more than 500 years as they try to use both sides of their brain to do the same task. And that, my friends, is just downright stupid. It doesn't work. When we use both hands, the signals go back and forth as our brain tries to figure out which side should be running the show. And we end up with terrible results. The pushes and the pulls. Two hands won't do. At least two hands won't do as well as one hand. And all the devices and all the techniques golfers can devise won't do it as well as one hand used properly. There used to be another two-handed activity attempting to do what one hand could do better. We don't do it anymore. For half the history of the game, basketball free throws were taken holding the ball with both hands and shooting it from the knees. Players were also taught to do two-handed set shots, or chest shots as they were called. In the 1950s, I learned to shoot this way. When my coach finally got smart, he permitted me to use only one hand to shoot, and I got much better results. I still enjoy shooting baskets, one-handed of course. It only took basketball 60 years to smarten up. I can't say as much for golf, and wonder how long it will take to smarten up. Golf has been around a lot longer, more than 500 years, and I wonder if it will ever learn. You see, for a long time we have known that the two sides of our brain control different sides of our body. The right side controls our left arm, the left side controls our right arm. So how come the golfing geniuses never learned this little bit of wisdom? There certainly are enough of them. Almost every bit of advice you received regarding grip, stance, visualization, and your putting stroke are actually attempts to teach you how to get good at putting the wrong way. Happily, you will discover that natural putting is less stressful and a heck of a lot easier to execute. So let's get back to how your brain can help your putting. Our eyes provide all of the information required to make a putt. They collect the data in less than a second, but we spend 5 to 10 seconds or even more deleting or altering what our brain was trying to tell us. We substitute what we think is better information, and we wonder why our putting suffers. Natural putting requires us to let our brain do its job without interference. Noise, of course, is the most obvious, but less obvious are the visual distractions as our eyes notice everything and report it to our brain. They register that a butterfly landed 15 feet off to the side. You may not think your brain takes note, but it does, and that butterfly landing joins our putting database. And then there is the putting activity itself. No matter how much we insist otherwise, our eyes keep feeding more information to our brain than the location of our ball, our putter, and our target. In fact, when golfers lose their focus on a target, they miss 2-foot putts. Their brain can't help focusing too much attention on the cup, and not enough on the target, especially when the cup is so close that it overshadows the actual target. So let's use these facts and get on with learning to putt. naturally. First, you need to make certain that all your parts are properly connected. There shouldn't be any information leaking on the way from your brain to your putter. So grip your club firmly, very firmly. No more of that wishy-washy stuff. It's like hammering a finishing nail. You need to hold the hammer firmly, with no wrist action, and hit the ball carefully with a precise amount of force. Putting requires the same kind of touch and control. You won't achieve that combination if you handle the hammer or your putter with a loose grip. You also have to lock your elbow. In effect, you're turning your arm and your putter into one of those long putters. Only you have a better pivot point, your shoulder. Now you can pendulum putt. No, I don't mean that convoluted version, but the real thing, which is so much simpler and better the natural way. One fulcrum, one swinging arm, nothing complicated. Natural putting only uses one shoulder for its pendulum. The fact is this, two-handed putting can't create a satisfactory pendulum without a lot of difficulty. By the way, I haven't heard of a pendulum having two pivot points or fulcrums. Have you? Here's a point for your pendulum, and because you are now using one arm for your putting, you can use it the way it was meant to be used. It doesn't matter anymore if you aren't properly lined up. Your pendulum operates equally well, no matter where you are aiming. Here is the next step in learning how to putt naturally, lining up your putt. Again, I am departing from tradition. I discovered a better way, a natural way. Grip your putter, but don't take any practice swings yet. Take up your stance with your body lined up in the general direction of your established target. If your feet aren't perfectly lined up, don't worry, it won't matter. With your knees slightly bent, place your putter behind the ball. Now straighten your knees so that your putter is raised about an inch above your ball. Next, swing your putter along the desired path for your putt. Remember, you are not rehearsing the power of your stroke. You are perfecting your aim. If you need to adjust your direction, don't move your feet. Just twist your waist until your club swings accurately along the proper path to your target. When you are certain your aim is correct, place your putter behind the ball and bend your knees until your putter is touching the ground. Shut your left eye. Your brain already knows how far it is to the cup. It will tell you how hard to hit the ball. Turn your head to the right until your nose blocks your view of the cup, but not your target, and then putt the ball. That is putting the natural way. I'll repeat the process. First, identify your target. Grip your club. Aim. Shut your left eye. Turn your head and putt the ball. Putting is nothing more than hitting the correct target at the correct speed. And when you let your body do things naturally, great putting happens naturally. Oh yes, what do you do with your other hand? Just put it in your pocket. Enjoy your game.